Hello and welcome to a special episode of Leaders in Focus, recorded here at Soho Farmhouse for the IMG Redbird Summit 2024. Our guest today is Dan Rossomondo, the CCO of MotoGP and its Dorna Sports promoter.
I've often joked to my team that they got the worst possible situation. Not only did they get an American, they got a New Yorker, and they got an NBA employee.
He'll be talking to us about acclimatizing to a new career in a new town, having joined Madrid-based MotoGP from a career at the NBA in New York. I thought it was a bit left field, but an amazing choice.
You thought it was left field, you should have heard my wife.
He'll be outlining his broad vision for a new commercial future for the series.
We're trying to take what has been a kind of sleeping giant and wake it up a bit.
And he'll be telling us how he's learning to cope with the constant comparisons to Formula One.
I want people to understand, it's MotoGP, that thing is the most exciting sport in the world.
This is Leaders in Focus. Dan Rossomondo.
That's right.
Rossomondo. Dan Rossomondo.
That rolls right off the tongue.
It does, yeah. Dan Rossomondo.
Yeah, I should be announced over our loudspeakers.
Dan Rossomondo.
That's it.
Thank you very much for being with us on Leaders in Focus. Dan, let's cut to it. What's on your to-do list right now?
Oh, man. You know, my ongoing joke is that the biggest, the number one prioritization point for me is actually set priorities.
Okay.
Because there's so much on a to-do list, you actually have to, not everything can be a priority.
How do you say no?
How do you say no? But I think what I've discovered in the last year is that we have an amazing sports proposition, and I have got to be this evangelist for the sport, and I have to develop ways to tell more people about it. So we're working on that. That's the biggest thing, and we're trying to do that while also build the commercial business and optimize that model. So I think marketing the sport and also building commercial businesses taking up a lot of my time.
What does a day-to-day look like? I appreciate there's no typical day, right?
No.
But what do you typically have to get through in any given day?
Yeah, no. So am I sitting in my office or am I traveling? What am I doing?
You're sitting in your office, I think.
You're
actually doing work.
I'm actually doing work. Wow. I think it's a combination of a few different things. It's trying to determine where the next growth area for the business is, what's possible in that world. So is it finding and having conversations with non-endemic partners, sponsors? Is it making sure that we are keeping our eye on the ball with our existing media partners and looking for any optimization there? Is it brand extensions? Is it building the brand? I mean, this summer, we did a project where we actually organized a marketing department for the first time in Dorna's history. We've had marketing had been in a lot of different places. So it really is, I look at it as, I look at the business, I look at the sport, and I look at the organization. Spend a little bit of time on all three of those things.
And what's keeping you up at night?
I think the number one thing that keeps me up at night is probably the media landscape.
Okay.
It really is. Not because it's... I'm not in control of it. It's so much is going on in that world that's seemingly changing rapidly. It's not good enough just to get viewership. You actually have to build and develop and deliver subscribers to your partners. We have a sport that is global, so we're not just talking about focusing on one market. We've got to focus on about 7 or 8 big partners. And how do we help drive their business? And that keeps me up at night because it's just not the same. There's no layback, and there's no also discovery. If I'm a consumer, if I'm a fan, I have unlimited options on what to watch. How does my sport break through? How do I get MotoGP for someone to wake up in the US on a Sunday morning at 9 a.m. and say, I want to watch a MotoGP race? Or how do I get someone in Indonesia at 10 o'clock at night to say, I want to watch a MotoGP race? It's a hard thing, and that keeps me up at night.
Where are you at in your right cycle at the moment? Are you thinking about a sales process right now, or are you a bit more relaxed?
No, we're not relaxed, but I would say that we have most of the larger ones done. So we're really in a good place there, and now it's just working on the optimization of those. So
the media landscape is keeping you up at night.
Yes, it is.
What gets you going in the morning? Strong coffee, I'd imagine, but then what?
I love my coffee in Spain, by the way. We're building something. We have if I had arrived at MotoGP and saw this sport that was kind of and it had the ecosystem was fragile and people were not convivial, I would have really been put off. But what I have is this sport that's electrifying. a very congenial paddock, and frankly, willing people inside of the company who want to build out the sport. So what gets me up is the fact that we're building something. We're trying to take what has been a kind of a sleeping giant and wake it up a bit. And I think that's fantastic and fun.
So you're a year and a half into the role. I remember when you were announced as the CCO of MotoGP, and I remember thinking, wow, I thought it was a bit left field, but an amazing choice.
You thought it was left field. You should have heard my wife.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. So they plucked you out of the NBA and they popped you over in Spain in this role with Dorna at MotoGP. It's going back a little bit now, but talk us through the recruitment process. Yeah. What do you think? What drew you to the role? How did it play out? What do you think they were looking for?
It's an interesting story. I was having one of those days where I just was kind of fed up, and I told my wife I'm going for a walk. I went to one of these parks, lovely parks near us in New Jersey, and I was walking through, and a +44 area code came up on my WhatsApp, and I picked it up, and it was a recruiter who said, "Hey, I've got this role I want to talk to you about. You need to sign an NDA." I'm like, "Well, send it my way." And the funny thing is, an NDA process at the NBA is very cumbersome. The NDA process for my personal needs, I sign right away.
I presume the NDA is now expired because you're speaking about it now.
Correct. Yeah. And it was, so they could tell me about the role. So he told me that it was who it was. I'm like, okay, interesting. I'd heard of MotoGP. I'd seen it a lot in my travels. And then I started in the process, and I met with a member of the board. I had a call with the executive team. I then went over there, and after each one of those meetings, I was like, this is great, but my interest will wane. And what happened was the opposite. After every meeting, my interest peaked and kept, well, maybe not peaked, but kept in to the fact where that it peaked. I'm like, okay, this is real.
Yeah.
And I remember when I got the offer, sitting in my kitchen, and my wife was on the phone, and I was looking at my phone, and she knew she's like, it's good, isn't it? I'm like, meaning it's like worth, like it was, you were still waiting for it not to happen, but it was fantastic because I don't ride motorcycles, nor do I need to, obviously. But it was something that I've never worked in motorsports. Yeah. But it was just the people, the opportunity, the whole thing kind of just clicked at the right time.
Give some context for where you were at in your career, because you'd spent many years at the NBA, right? And in different positions, but mainly to do with partnerships and
So global media sponsorships, that was my basic role for a lot of years. And look, I think the NBA you come to a point where it is, first of all, it's one of the greatest organizations to work for because it's an unbelievable learning experience. You're just involved in a lot of different things. Everybody wants to talk to people at the NBA. Everybody wants to partner with you. So it's really cool, a learning experience. It's also very hard because we're always on. There's no off season. There's a desire to be the best in everything that you do. So it's draining. So I was there for 17 years, and I remember when I hit 10 years back at the NBA, so 2019, looking at my wife saying, all right, it's time for I find something new because I don't want to become part of the furniture here. I don't want to be an accessory. And then COVID hit, and it was a blur, and we were managing through that, and next thing you know, it was 3 years later, but I was ready for something new. So when it came across my desk, it was serendipitous, good timing.
Yeah. What was the acclimatization period like? What did you have to do? What did you have to learn? Was there anything that shocked you, surprised you? Did you have to forget things that you were doing routinely at the NBA?
I've often joked to my team at MotoGP that they've got the worst possible situation. Not only did they get an American, they got a New Yorker, and they got an NBA employee. Yeah. They got the worst combination ever. So I had to really go in there and not be a bull in the china shop. And that was, I think mission accomplished. I think I've learned the organization, learned the paddock. And that's been really a part of it. The biggest acclimatization, I think, to me was that the NBA, we were the league office, the NFL league office, Premier League league office, and the teams put on all the events. The NBA does the All-Star game, it does Summer League, it does the draft, and everything else is the teams. Here, we're the organizing body, the championship. We're also out organizing 22 events in 18 countries a year. It's a massive undertaking. So you have to pick your spots on where you want people to spend time, because if you take people away from one project, the race doesn't happen. So that was, to me, the biggest mindset change. Right. It's as if we put on 22 All-Star games a year, every weekend, 22 weekends a year. That's a big thing. So
And what was the first race that you went to?
Austin, Texas.
Oh, great.
Home race, home
Great.
GP. I went to that one.
So nice and gentle.
Nice and gentle. And I went to that one, and I'm like, I was amazed by the sport. I was amazed how nice the people were. The kids immediately gravitated towards it, which made it easier for me. And then the second race, though, was Jerez.
Yeah.
Which, if you've ever been to Jerez, it's in the south of Spain. And there's a stream of motorbikes coming from all over Europe that just fill the roads for a couple days leading up. And then there's about 15, 20, 50,000 motorcycles parked. It's an amazing thing to see.
Yeah.
And that was sort of the beating heart that I'm like, okay, now I kind of get it.
Yeah.
But it was an amazing experience.
Yeah. You mentioned the guys at MotoGP basically got the worst of all worlds with you, with the, American, New Yorker, NBA. And I guess what you're talking to potential culture clash there, right? Yeah. And you've talked about, the big thing that you had to get your head around was suddenly a difference in organization. And, Dorna is essentially a centralized organizer of promoters and lots of different events as opposed to kind of league administration office. What about that cultural element? Were there any kind of cultural difficulties, cultural challenges that you have had to work through?
I think there have been. I think I just work at a different pace than everybody else, and I also give them.
I'm going to say faster.
A little faster.
Okay.
And look, in people's defense, I also, when I'm in Madrid and my family's not there, what's Dan doing in his spare time? He's working. Yeah. He's on his computer on the weekend. He goes, that's what I do. So, and I'm sorry that I just used myself in the third person. I will never do that again.
That's okay.
You can slap me if I ever do that again.
I think if you're going to do that, you should refer to yourself as Rossomondo.
Yeah, maybe. Okay.
Yeah.
But I think, so that was one cultural change, just kind of the pace and but also I think, and I don't know if this is cultural change or it's just a reality, getting them to think bigger. Yeah. Getting them to think a lot of them have been there a while, a lot of them live in this world, but getting them to see that the opportunity is larger than what it is now. And I think that's still something we're working on, just to think a little bit bigger, to think of it a little bit more like brand consultants, think a little bit more like motorsport experts, and not just we're in MotoGP, we're in this two world. No, it's bigger than that. Yeah. So I think that's, I don't know if it's culture, but it's definitely something that we're continuing to work on. Yeah.
Okay. So there's that cultural element and the vision element, I suppose, and the sort of broadening those horizons. And just the flip side of the whole American New Yorker NBA thing is, well, these are all amazing qualities and great experience that you might want in a senior person at a sports entity. So what do you think you're bringing to MotoGP in terms of that classic North American sports marketing?
I'll hedge that a little bit before I answer and say that I also am, I believe that I'm a bit of a global citizen too. Like, I studied international politics in college. I could tell you where countries are in the world that I think most Americans probably don't know. And I've also been just exceedingly interested in that, and whether it be geography or history or international relations. So I come in with a cultural openness that I think is probably important. But I think what they were looking for in terms of the American business executive mindset was, how do we optimize the business in terms of, we have had organic growth. We have gone from 14 races to 18 to 20 to 22. Therefore, we get more promoter fees. Therefore, we might get more media dollars. Therefore, we get more title sponsorships. That's great. But then how do we develop inorganic growth? How are we going to just grow? And that, to me, is what they were looking for. They're looking for someone to say, we can continue to trundle along at a certain level, but how do we then turn into a hockey stick and go straight up? And I think just kind of setting out the processes, setting out the vision, I hate that word, but setting out the vision and being aggressive and confident who we are. I think that was all sort of parts of it.
What are you learning about the different markets that MotoGP is operating in? Where do you feel like you're finding some immediate success? You're resonating with the kind of business vibes in particular countries?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think I'm going to go back to my NBA experience a little bit. One of the things I learned from the NBA when I was traveling was that the NBA meant different things to different people in different markets. Like, in the United States, you're not friends. We're fans of the NBA, the logo. You're fans of the team, Bulls, Lakers, Knicks, whoever it might be, right? We have MotoGP fans. We have fans of the sport. And just like how the NBA might have been known for international entertainment and marketing in the UK or Paris, we're also known for racing and then individual markets have fan bases. So like, they're fans of the manufacturer, they might be fans of the teams, they might be fans of the riders, they might just be fans of the excitement. So I wish one size fit all. It would be a heck of a lot easier if one size fit all. But what we're trying to determine is where can we amass a fan base? Where can we learn more about those fans? And then how can we represent what we've learned back to partners and actually monetize it? And there is no one size fits all, because the fan in France is a heck of a lot different than the fan in Indonesia, who's different than the fan in the US. And it's a balance.
Yeah.
It's a real balance, and it's a real challenge.
Yeah. So a year and a half in, you've passed your probation period.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Well done. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Mark your own work for us. If you'll give us a grade.
B-.
Okay. Why?
B-.
Why is that?
Because I'm impatient.
Okay.
Exceedingly impatient. I think it's just, I'm a hard grader too, but I think it's a B- is probably fair. I think that we made a lot of strides in certain fronts. I think we made a lot of strides in the organizational side. I think we made a lot of strides on the mentality, from the mentality aspect. We just need to now turn those into really positive results going forward on the commercial side. So I give it a B-.
Okay. And what would you, if you were sort of writing a little report back to your parents at home, accompany the B- grade?
Yeah.
What would you be saying? Dan's worked really hard this year. He has achieved great success in X, but he could work a little harder in Y.
Yeah.
What would be the X and the Y?
I think that the unfortunate part of that is that typically when I did poorly at school is because I was lazy.
Okay.
This wasn't the case in this one. This wasn't the case.
Dan's worked very, very hard. He couldn't work hard. Unfortunately, he hasn't achieved.
The effort's been there. It's like, there's a great comedian, Daniel Tosh, who's got this bit about, I don't understand not being a good tester. What do you mean you're not good at telling us what you know?
Yeah.
What is that? So I think that I spent a lot of time on areas that, and we can get into this, we spent a lot of times on areas that were sort of ancillary or at least tertiary to where I think the commercial success is going to be.
Right.
I had to set up that foundation first before we can then go into monetization. So we've done a lot.
Yeah.
We've improved the relationship with our teams. We've set up a marketing organization. We have built an activation group within our sponsorship group. We've done a lot of stuff on the organization side that I think will set us up for success, but the success is going to come. It's still out there and still waiting to happen.
Yeah. Where do you think MotoGP will be in 2 years' time?
I actually wrote that down. We sort of, when I was only 2 months in, maybe even less, maybe in a month in, I asked my team for an invitation that I could send out to some people for one of our races coming up. And they sent me something and it said, we're inviting you to MotoGP, the most exciting motorcycling event in the world. And I went back and said, okay, this is not big enough. We should be known as the most exciting sport, because we are. So let's walk with a little swagger. So I think I just want that more well known. I want people to understand, it's MotoGP. That thing is the most exciting sport in the world. I think that's where I want to be. And I also want... I want to have a lot of top tier brands understanding that there is a place to play inside of MotoGP where they can be authentic, there could be organic inclusion, and frankly, we'll be co-pilots with them in helping them build their brand. So on the business front, I think we continue to do all the things we're doing with existing partners, but bring a whole new batch of new ones in who can help us build the brand. I think in 2 years, we should really be there. But I also think on the marketing side, that to me is a story that we need to just tell it from the rooftops, because I've yet to bring someone to a race who hasn't walked out of that race going, I can't believe what I just saw.
Yeah.
So, and I've had a lot of return visits too, which is great as well.
Yeah. People keep tapping you up for invites, I guess. Yeah.
Interesting.
So it's interesting you talk about moving. It's vision, isn't it? It's broadening those horizons. It's not talking about MotoGP as a motorcycling event.
No.
It's talking about it as a sports event or even just an entertainment event.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
This is an amazing weekend. Yeah. You're broadening those horizons, but you're also moving into the realm that I guess Formula One is already in and does market itself in similar kind of ways. This is an amazing weekend. It's got the excitement, the glamour, etc. That comparison gets drawn a lot, the MotoGP versus Formula One, and I guess for obvious reasons.
Sure.
How often do you find yourself coming up against that? And how helpful or otherwise do you think it is?
It's funny. I find myself when someone doesn't know what MotoGP is, typically an American.
Yeah.
I just tell them it's Formula One on two wheels.
Yeah.
It's the easiest way to do it. Of course, it's not. I mean, there's a lot of differences, but it's an easy comp. Listen, I wish, and I've told Stefano Domenicali this, I wish I had some of his problems. Like, he's got first world problems in a lot of ways. But I think we're just different. I think what we have to focus on, James, we have to focus on doing things that are unique to MotoGP. Mm-hmm. If all of a sudden I started having 40 celebrities walking up and down our pit lane and our grid, people would think it's just okay. It's just not real. Mm-hmm. But when we bring someone like Keanu Reeves to the event who knows more about motorcycles than I ever will, it just makes sense, and it's cool content. He's like a child out there. He loves it so much. Yeah. That makes sense. So we have to be unique to who we are, and what we are is visceral, emotional. And you talked about entertainment. Like, we are an entertainment product. We just happen to be an entertainment product that has the best racing in the world. Yeah. We can be both, and that's what we want to do. Yeah. So we come up against them. It's just sometimes it's just a different world. I mean, I will say, and I can say this, every time a F1 driver comes to our...
Yeah, they love it. Yeah.
Their youthful exuberance comes out in ways that I've never seen before.
Where do you keep the list of celebrities who love motorbikes?
Yeah.
Is that on your phone?
It's
constantly
updated?
You know,
there's a search, and there's a note in my phone. Yeah. Yeah.
Because add David Beckham to it, by the way.
David Beckham, we tried. Jason Statham came to our race at Silverstone this year. He loves it. Yeah. I think he was just his face was just hilarious. He put on his Instagram feed. So yeah, there's a bunch. Yeah. There's a bunch.
How do you turn Pecco Bagnaia into a global superstar? A global superstar that is, resonates in the US.
Resonates, yeah.
He's by the way, he's a MotoGP world champion.
Two-time world champion. Yep. And he's second in the championship right now. It's interesting because I answer that question in two different ways. Sometimes I answer that question so having them be global means they have to be popular in America. Yeah. I guess that's a very American way to say it.
Do you know what? You can narrow that down and just say, well, it's global if it's 3 countries.
I know.
It has to include America.
But I feel like for me, that's such an Americanized view of things, but I get it. Yeah. I do get it. Pecco's awesome. He does something on a bike that is you should be able to aspire to understand a machine like he understands that machine. And he does a lot to raise his profile. Like, he was at the Gucci fashion show. He's been in Gucci ads. He was in Juventus's ad when they launched their new third kit. Like, he's done a lot to get his profile up. I think all of that will come when when I start doing a better job of making the sport more relevant in the United States. I don't think it's incumbent upon him. It's incumbent upon me. Mm-hmm. So what we are trying to do is, how do we make MotoGP show up in places it doesn't belong? That's the big challenge. Okay. So people right now, makes sense that we're here in this publication, on this website, in this blog. It makes sense. I want to get us out of that sort of historical cycle and get us into, that's interesting. I've seen that sport. That's what we have to do. Right. Show up in places that we haven't been before. Yeah. And that's our challenge, and that's what we'll do.
Sort of have a wider cultural relevance.
Yes. Right? Yeah. Said better than I did. The other thing that I get all the time is, well, you got to get an American rider. You got to get an American. And I'm sorry, but first of all, it's just not easy. You just can't fake it. Yeah. You just can't fake it. These guys are the best in the world, and what they do is very, very dangerous and very difficult. Mm-hmm. But also, and I've said this 1,000 times, Lionel Messi is the most popular football player in the United States. You ever hear him? Has he ever done an interview in English? No. So now he's an extreme example, but that's what we're trying to do. And I also joke all the time. Tons of Americans go to the Uffizi in Florence every summer, and they don't complain that there's too many Italians on the wall. That's.
I wouldn't put it past someone.
No, someone might. But you know what I mean? That's all. Where's the Jackson Pollock? They don't know.
Where's the pineapple on this pizza?
Where's the dogs playing poker? No, they don't do that. They actually, they whether it's Botticelli or whoever, they appreciate that. And I think, we have to just.
What are you saying? Americans aren't Philistines?
I don't. Fine.
That's
you
good.
Said it. Yeah, I don't think so. Look how popular the EPL is. Yeah. Look how popular F1 is. Yeah. There's, Logan Sargent, he hasn't exactly not set the world on fire, but Formula One's having a moment. Yeah. EPL, I think if I'm correct, NBC at its highest opening weekend ever for the EPL this year.
Yeah.
No Americans are playing in those games.
Yeah. Well, who's the most interesting person you've kind of bumped into in the paddock, or continually bump into? Like, who do you like seeing around?
I've spent a little time with Valentino Rossi. He's a superstar, and it's cool being around a guy who's a superstar. Like he exudes something. Like, it reminds me a little about like LeBron James. Like, he exudes something that's just Steph Curry.
We are here at the IMG Redbird Summit.
Yes.
In the middle of nowhere in the English countryside. Although we're not too far from Silverstone, actually.
Beautiful English countryside.
Beautiful English countryside. Yeah. We're in what will be I think the main venue for the summit over the next couple of days. Literally, it's a stone's throw to a real farm. The stable's just out there. I think if you inhale hard enough, I think you can get the smell of them mucking out at the moment. But, what are you doing here? Apart from talking to me, obviously.
I thought that was the primary reason. No, I was luckily invited by our friends at IMG, who we have a relationship with, who work with on our international media rights, and they asked if I could come and participate. And I think it's just a great event to talk to different people in the industry. And one thing that I've come to understand is that if you're done learning, you're done living. So you better start talking to people and learn as much as you can. So that's why I'm here.
What are you doing when you're not working, Dan? You reading? You watching?
I'm reading. Yeah. I am reading.
What do you read?
Currently, I'm reading a book about Theodore Roosevelt's journey down a river in Brazil.
A factual book?
Historical fiction. No, historical book. No.
Okay.
Nonfiction.
Yeah.
River of Doubt.
Okay.
I listen to the Rest is History podcast all the time. I love it.
Great. Yeah.
Currently listening to the one on the French Revolution.
Yeah.
After finishing a 4-episode one on the 100 Years' War with Henry V and the Battle of Agincourt, which I thought was awesome. I do a lot of that. I love to play golf and drink wine.
Together.
And I also, and this is like going to sound real, I'm a huge sports fan. I just am. I grew up with it. My dad turned me in. I watch everything. So
give us a sense of like the type of person. Yeah, no. So what's your EPL team? What's your Formula One team? What's your NBA team? What's your MLB team?
Okay, so I'll start with, I'm a Giants, Knicks, Yankees fan.
You're that kind of New York
Knicks,
guy.
Yankees.
Yep.
Georgetown basketball at college, because that's where I went to university. I'm a Juventus supporter, the Bianconeri. My kids are Manchester United supporters. I don't have a Formula One team. I just don't know enough, frankly, and I don't have one. My favorite golfer, my favorite athlete of all time might be Fred Couples, who's no longer on the PGA Tour, but he's senior and fantastic. And I will compete in anything. Yeah. I will walk down the street and try to walk by you. Yeah. My wife and I play cards. It typically ends in arguments. Yeah. So that's what I am. That's the initial rank.
Outside of MotoGP and motorsport, what's the most interesting thing that you're seeing on the sports business side at the moment? There's a lot going on all over.
There's a lot going on. There's sports that are 2 weeks a year. Think about Wimbledon. Think about the U.S. Open. Think about a golf tournament. Yep. Ryder Cup, whatever it might be, comes every 2 years. How do they extend that to 365 days a year? Very interesting dynamic, and a lot of people are working on that. And then there's the geographical aspect. How does the EPL make itself more popular in the U.S.? How does the NFL, who just played a game in Sao Paulo, extend its reach? I think those are interesting questions, because you're fighting you're not only up against your own economics, ticket sales, rights, player unions, but you're also, the opportunity is you want to expose yourself to more people. And the dynamic of that is, what is that marginal increase in revenue you're going to get from that new fan somewhere else, that from the existing fan who you already know you can monetize? And I think that dynamic is huge and interesting. And I think the NBA had faster planes. They'd be there first, but it's just, their season's just so hard that they can't manage to do it.
Very interesting response to a question you weren't prepared for. So thank you.
You're welcome.
What would you be doing if you weren't doing sports?
Oh my goodness. Own
a vineyard? Maybe?
Oh God, would that be awesome? It's funny because
vineyard with golf course.
That sounds great. There's a wonderful, there's a great one out in Napa that's like that. I would say, I was going to go to law school, And my brother, who is a Harvard educated lawyer, recovering lawyer, he's no longer practices, dissuaded me from that. And when I was like 21 years old, and I'm thankful for him for that, because I feel like I got my junior JD working at the NBA. I think I'd probably be in business development or sales somewhere else. I kind of, I'm the most antisocial social person, I confess to not like people, but I really kind of do. So I'd probably be doing something in that space. I don't know where.
What is the ideal partner for MotoGP? What are the qualities you want in a partner?
Yeah, I think someone who's going to invest in the sports outside of what they invest in us. Someone who's going to believe that our sport and our stars and our intellectual property can drive their business. And this goes really back to, at the NBA, when the NBA's group that was selling sponsorships was called partnerships. Because David Stern, I'm not local radio. I don't need sponsors. I need partners. And if you think about how the NBA was built in the 80s and 90s, it was built on the back of McDonald's, Nike, Reebok, Coca-Cola, those guys doing the Gatorade, those guys doing those spots made the NBA cool in a lot of different ways. And that's what I need. Well, first of all, my group has to be adept enough to be able to build out ideas and solutions for brands. And then the brands need to be willing to say, you know what, I want to invest in making this sport popular because it's going to help my association with them.
Who do you go to for guidance?
Yeah. Who do I go to? Well, I go to my dad still. My dad's, my dad worked in corporate business for a lot of years, so I go to him still for guidance. And maybe not even for guidance, just to get his reaction to things, so I'll know then whether I'm going down the right path. This is going to be a hokey answer, but I do really go to Carmelo. The guy's an unbelievable, what he's done and just, where he started, how he got to where he is in the economy, that, this guy has done crazy things.
Yes.
Go to him. I have some good friends. A lot of former NBAers that we talk a lot. So there's a good alumni group that we.
If you had one piece of advice for your younger self starting out in your career in sports business, what would it be?
This is the one. This again, I think, is probably. There's sort of this popularity of stoicism right now that's going on in the world, and Marcus Aurelius, I'm not going to get the quote right, said something that's really cool. It just basically said, it's not the event, it's how you let the event impact you. It's basically the gist of it.
Okay.
Some things are going to happen.
Yeah.
You can choose how to react to those things. And I think that if I had known that, it would save me a lot of stress and heartache that events happen.
Yeah.
You have to decide how that event's going to change your day. I wish I knew that a little bit sooner. Yeah. I probably learned it in college and just forgot it, but that to me is a really good point. That's something that I try to actually tell my kids to do as well.
Dan Rossomondo, thank you very much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.